My name is Charley Seris, and I've been asked to share my faith journey with the church. And this is an opportunity that I've had before, and I relish this opportunity. I've said this before to when I've told my story that, like a lot of folks my age, I was born and raised in the church. I was baptized in the church at 6 weeks old. I was from St. Louis, Missouri, and we had at Concordia Maplewood, which was one of the churches that the students from the seminary, from Concordia Seminary, came to, and so we had the benefit of some students and what we thought was some real doctrinal teaching. It was a great church. As I grew up in the church, we went through a confirmation class because I had gone to public school rather than a parochial school there. The pastor we had was John Meyer. And Pastor Meyer was a stickler for where the commas and the periods were in the sentences, so that when we had to learn catechism, we had to recite and memorize those things. That we did pretty good when it came to what does this mean. But when we got to doing the creeds and the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed, all of us in the class would mix up the parts and the pieces. We'd start with one and drift into the other and so forth, and he would instantaneously interrupt us and tell us, nope, wrong one, go back and do it right. And so we had to do a lot of recitation and memory work. But at that time, when we were, for this generation anyway, that my sister and I, my brother, all of us, we didn't have dishwashers. We were the ones that when mom washed the dishes or we washed the dishes, we used that opportunity to memorize and do our Bible memory work, so we would be ready for our confirmation classes. It was a time when that's when you learned your times tables and whatever else too. So it was like this was back in the day, as they say. I don't know whether people do that much anymore, but that was the way we learned to do a lot of stuff. My faith journey included doing all the things that back then that young boys were expected to do. I was an acolyte in the church during confirmation time. We were part of the Walther League, which was the youth group at that time. And an interesting aside on that was that my grandmother, who was an old German Lutheran, wanted to name my father. I'm a junior, and so my father was a senior. She wanted to name him Walther C. Seris, but because he was born in a Roman Catholic hospital, they shortened that to Walter. So it's now Walter Charles Seris. And I now have a grandson that's named Walter. So just as a bid to old history of the church that goes on in the family lore now. Going through the faith journey, every one of us has a path that we've walked, and we've had to go up hills, and we've had high mountains, and we've had mountaintop experiences, and we've also had low places and low points in our lives. And it's at those times and at those places where we can pretty much point to what our interaction and what we were feeling and what our relationship with the Lord was. And I don't take that lightly. Among the high points, obviously the birth of my children and my wedding, and the low point, Peggy and I were married, and we've had 2 children, but I was married before when I got out of college, and the woman that I married was a choir director, and I sang in the choir, but we had a son, and Christopher is my oldest son, but she divorced me, and at that point you say things like, God, why did you allow that to happen to me? Why was this? What did I do wrong? But it comes back to, and this is where the biblical passage that I have plans for you. And so when that happened, it took a while, but the plans included meeting and marrying Peggy and having 2 wonderful children that I am so proud of, all 3 of my children and my grandchildren, the product of what the Lord has brought us, all 7 grandchildren. And I got a twinkle in my eye, but all 7 of our grandchildren are wonderful human beings, and they are truly God's work, and each one is uniquely different and wonderfully made, and they are contributing folk. Peggy and I have, since the day before we were married, we've been involved in our church, and we got married in Mount Calvary Lutheran Church in Brentwood, Missouri. After we got married, I served as the Board of Education president for a couple of years. When we moved from Mount Calvary, we moved to Ferguson, Missouri to continue our family. I was still teaching school in the public school system, and after a couple of years, we found that our children were missing something that they weren't getting in the public school educational system. That was, we felt that they needed to go to the Lutheran school, so we sent them to Grace Chapel Lutheran School up in Bell Fountain Neighbors. Both of them went there and were accomplished students there and super students, and were participating members in the youth group and the sports teams, and from there, both of them went on to Lutheran North High School in St. Louis, where both of them performed on the sports teams and graduated from there with honors. And both of them ended up at Concordia, Chicago. We are thrilled about that because that's where both of them met their spouses. Phil met Lisa there, who is a wonderfully strong Lutheran woman, and Michelle met David there, who was from St. Louis, and went to Concordia Kirkwood. Come to find out over the years that both of them had been to youth conventions or youth gatherings together and did not know one another. They had been in similar circles and doing the same kinds of things. And even come to find out that David's mom and dad got married in the same church where Peggy and I got married at. So it's that small Lutheran world keeps, you throw that little rock in the pond and the ripples keep getting bigger and bigger. The Lutheran walk that's going on here, our faith journey, keeps increasing because of the number of fine Lutheran people that do have great faith, that do have recognized that things that God has provided come with obligations and with responsibilities and with the joys. And so Peggy and I and the children, all of us have taken up our roles in the church, whether we're Michelle is now teaching and David is now working at Faith Lutheran out in Las Vegas. Phil is working as one of the STEM folks over to Prince of Peace here in Carrollton. My oldest son, Chris, is on his church board up in St. Louis. Our religious outlook and our religious focus is in our doctrinal training, and what we believe is truly a family affair. We do what we can when we all together. We say our prayers and our graces. We are thankful and celebrate one another as the Lord wants us to do as a family. Sometimes when people start talking about their faith journey, it turns into a session of, bragging is a right word, or you start touting your good works or whatever it is. And it's like, I really hesitate to do some of those things because I was just called to do these things. I fell into them, I do them, and I've done a lot of this stuff without wanting recognition for any of it, or even an attaboy or anything else. My boys and Michelle also, the kids all were involved heavily in scouting before they took their turn in the last several years. During those scouting opportunities and whatever, I found myself as a chaplain of sorts, so I was responsible for doing church services at camporees and at campouts and at a thing called National Youth Leadership Training, and at other opportunities and adult leader training, and was always able to say at the beginning, at the outset, that no matter what we're doing, I'm going to be speaking to you from a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod standpoint rather than just approaching it from a Protestant standpoint or even a non-denominational standpoint. Being called upon to do these kinds of things, it's like I was asked to do it. People who ask you to do things like this, especially when it comes to sharing your beliefs and your religion, is like they don't come to that just off the cuff. Apparently you've done something that people think that you have something that you need to share, that you can do, that will bring other people, and especially with the Scouts, where part of the Scout law is to be reverent. And so to bring that to other folks is an opportunity. The same way while the kids were going to Grace Chapel, I was asked to run and was on the school board for a number of years and served as the school board president for a number of years. And so again, combining not only the church opportunity but the educational opportunity, somebody or people thought that I had something that I needed to share, or through that opportunity and that journey, I was asked to serve on the Lutheran High School Association search committee for the principal of Lutheran High School North. So again, It's not necessarily things that you seek out. It's what people ask you to do because they see that you're doing something. And again, I don't like to do the bragging thing. I really don't do that well. I don't toot my own horn at all very well. I like to have a good time. I like to joke around a lot, but sometimes I like to think that the mission that we have of having a sense of humor and having great faith is all part of it. And I recognize that my belief system is absolutely and totally Bible-based. Some of the old days, when you said, when God said it, I believe it, that ends it, I bought into that a long time ago, that some questions that, although we may have them, it's just not for us to know. That's within God's purview, and we're not God, and any attempts to make ourselves into that, you're going to be forever lacking in whatever. I trust Him wholeheartedly, whatever it is that we're doing and however it is He sees fit to get us there. I have great faith in how that's working out. And again, as life goes along and as people age, and we are reminded that it'll be a great day when we're in heaven and we see all those people that have gone before us. It's like, okay, at the same time, isn't it nice to think that when we get to heaven, that when we turn around and look at the people that are coming after us, we'll recognize us too. And we will be able to see our children and our great-grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren and those people that are coming after us, which is why we're sharing the faith with them, so that they too can share in this joy and the hope of the resurrection with Jesus Christ. With that, I'm going to say, my faith journey is still strong. I'm still walking upright, and I will keep moving this way and keep moving forward until the day I die. And Lord Jesus, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Amen. And this is my story.